Welcome, neighbors, to my deck. I'd like to do a quick review of, I guess, a controversial Canadian blended whiskey. That would be the Crown Royal release that they thought they should call Bourbon Mash. Well, thanks for sticking with me. As I said in the very short intro, today I want to look at the second, I think it's the second release of the Blenders series. If you don't know anything about Canadian whiskey, boy, how to give you the short history. Really, look up Davin Kergamo. He's written the book literally and twice, and he's awesome, and he's available for the long history. But the short history, I would say, there's a couple of real larger producers of whiskey in Canada, and one of those is Crown Royal out of Gimli, Manitoba. They make blended whiskey. They're actually, I would absolutely use the term master blenders, because their regular Crown Royal release is a blend of about 50 different whiskeys, which I can't imagine tasting that many whiskeys and then subtly blending them to get what they want. So that's rather impressive. This is what I think they started to release. I think they released their coffee rye first, and that was then really successful. So they released, I think that's about 90% of what's in Northern Harvest rye, which was a very popular rye for Crown Royal. So this is, I think, the second release out of that Blender series. I think I did say they have 50 whiskeys in their regular blend, but I think they have about 5 whiskeys that really they're making for a very distinct flavor that they add to create the overall flavor profile. One of which is rye, and the second one is one that would be styled after a bourbon. So if you're new to whiskey entirely, bourbon, to be bourbon, has to be over 50% corn or 51% corn, and made entirely in the United States, and then aged in new charred American oak. The controversy around this whiskey is not its use of a bourbon mash, which would be high corn, some rye for flavor, malted barley for cream or nuttiness, or to open up the enzymes. It's for the use of the word right on front: Crown Royal Bourbon Mash. And to label a whiskey bourbon, it needs to be created entirely in the United States. So this would be my apologies to our good friends in the US. I don't know why they thought this was okay. I think they really thought it was okay because it says mash bill, meaning that a lot of Canadian whiskeys will age their corn or their rye or their barley separately, and then they'll blend them after aging. So they distill them separately, they age them in oak separately, and then they blend them, marry them for some time, and then release them. This whiskey, though, is more in the United States pattern, the bourbon pattern, in that there was a mash bill. I don't know the mash bill, but I know it's high corn, some rye, some barley. And then they would distill that, ferment, then distill, then age that whole distillate in a series of, and I think this one also emphasizes new charred oak. This is still a blend, though, so this isn't a single mash bill distilled and aged. I think they still blended even after that process. So anyways, I ramble. I just wanted to point out that I wish that they simply would have called this what they're calling it now, I think, which is Blender's Mash or something like that, just to avoid the controversy. Apologize if I'm sweating. I've been working, and it's about 86, 87 for my American friends, and about 30 degrees or so here on my deck. Let's get into the whiskey itself, probably why you tuned in. So the nose, absolutely a bourbon style nose. Corn, sweet. I get a little bit of cinnamon, mild spice, but not much. Vanilla. If I dig in there a few baking spices, I will say, quite sweet. And there is a little bit of alcohol or menthol or ethanol that does come up out of the nose. This has got to be a young whiskey. They're great at blending and making it feel okay in the mouth, but I don't think you can hide that this has to be a 4 or 5 year old whiskey. But if you gave this to me blind, I'd likely say high corn, maybe some rye, maybe some spice. Give it a taste. You know, Crown knows how to make a gently creamy, quite enjoyable in the mid palate, but they keep enough rye in there to get a little pepper on the tongue, little spice. Again, some baking spices, maybe. If I was to put a fruit in it, though, I'm not getting cherry, but I would go maybe apple, like a crisp green apple. Yeah, finish is short. And you'll get your oak notes. Actually, now that I got the oak notes, no, still up front. So, you can see I've had a fair taste of this one. I think they're clearing. One of the reasons why I want to review this, not the controversial part, but because I often see it on sale right now. I think they really are trying to move out the bourbon mash label and bring it back maybe as the blender. So you can get it around Canada for $30, which, you know, for $30, this is an interesting whiskey. Corn forward, sweet, but there's still some pepper, some rye spice in there. However, I would say that I tend to drink a little bit of it and I think, oh, this is okay. I like the flavors. I like it up front. It's quite smooth in the mid palate. Front palate is sugary, mid is smooth, and now we get a bit of spice. But if I go through a dram of this, I actually like it a little less. I think, I don't want to say they rushed it because they don't. I mean, they know what they're doing, but I do think that there's not quite as much quality in this. So you see the edges of young whiskey. You feel it in your palate. You feel that edges of bitter instead of that strong wood, but it starts to come back bitter. And the nose too. There's, you know, high sweetness and some spice, but there's something else too that to me I really notice when like after tasting, it's like, what is it that's kind of putting me off? And I'll pour some a bourbon of higher quality, or even a Scotch, like something that's been aged a lot longer. And oh, right, there's rough edges in this whiskey still. And because of that, if you're sipping it, you'll notice that. You'll start to notice it's not quite a plasticky taste, but you know, it's that, this needed a little more time. And you know, you sip it more and you taste a bit more, and it goes from sweet to oversweet. You know, you're no longer tasting homemade ice cream with hand melted caramel sauce. You're tasting fast serve ice cream with squished caramel sauce. Like, it's all like the right flavors are there, but they're just not coming together like you want them to. So final result, unfortunate they went with this name. Clearly it looks like a cheap trick. I don't believe it is. I've heard interviews with the master blender and the North American brand ambassador with Mark Bylock on the whiskey topic, and they were very sincere in the way they were describing it, and that they wanted to emphasize that, you know, the mash bill is a bourbon style like you would find in the US. But I still think they could have avoided the entire controversy, released the exact same product with a different brand and name, and it would have been, I think, you know, at least given a chance. Some circles have, you know, burned it in effigy kind of thing, and I'm not about to do that. But I don't regret buying it at $30, but it's only 40%, and as I said, the flavors with time come up a little bit shallow, a little bit shy. So at best, I could give this would be a 3-star whiskey for me. So that's my thoughts on Crown Royal. I think it's coming back as Blender's Mash if it's gone, or Bourbon Mash if you see it around. If you're in Canada, I'm quite sure you're going to be able to see it on sale over the next few weeks, if not months, until it's gone. So cheers. Thanks for joining me. You guys take care. Oh, hey, if you're thinking about it, maybe hit like or don't like, subscribe, or give me your thoughts on this Crown Royal product. You guys have a good night. Cheers.